Okay.
Yeah, basically how would you set the stage? How would you start the workshop? Throw in a little bit of your own personal story in there so we can figure out who you are, and then just get us. I always picture this as like the teaser to the movie. This is what's going to get us excited about being here for the next hour and hearing what you have to say to work with us.
Okay, perfect.
All right, so have fun.
Awesome. Well, welcome to PCA's Developing Triple Impact Competitors Workshop for Coaches. A little bit of background on me. My name is Harris Fanaroff. I am 27 years old. I have been involved in sports in one way or another since I was 4 years old. So sports has been in my life for over 20 years at this point. Baseball was really my passion as far as the sport that I played the most. I grew up playing competitive baseball since I was 7 years old. So basically played competitive baseball for over 15 years and absolutely am passionate about baseball and really all sports. For the last 5 years, I have been coaching baseball in the DC area. So ever since my baseball career ended after playing at Lehigh University, I have been coaching baseball in the DC area. I have gotten relatively recently involved with PCA because I'm passionate about positive coaching and doing coaching the right way. I think throughout my experience, I've seen a lot of different types of coaches, and I'm excited about what the PCA model stands for and how to share that with all of you today. So we'll talk today doing the PCA workshop, the Developing Triple Impact Competitors workshop for our time today. And I use workshop intentionally because I don't want to just talk at you all for 30 minutes or an hour or however long we have today. But I really want it to be an interactive workshop. I know there's a lot of valuable coaching experience involved in the room today. And I want to make sure that my voice is not the only one heard because that will be boring for everybody involved. So if you're with me, and you'll see on the slide here about signing in for today's workshop, I want to make sure that we get that squared away and get that taken care of. By doing so, you'll receive a certification of completion of the workshop today. You'll also be able to get access to all the different resources and tools that are available through PCA. And then finally, you'll help us measure the impact of what PCA is doing across the country. So if you'll go with me through some of this, if you haven't yet, I want you to text the number 650-763-2405. And I need you to include all of the following. First, our workshop ID number. Make sure you do the number sign in front of the 5 numbers. So we'll do number sign and then 0000. So 5 zeros there. And then you'll put in your first name, your last name, and your email address just to make sure that you all are signed in and you have access to today's workshop. I just want to also note that we won't be sharing any of this information with anyone. It's just for us to be able to track and for you to be able to get access to any of the resources. Any questions about getting signed in before we move forward?
Nope, all good.
Cool. So I want to get, as I mentioned, not have myself be the only one talking here. So I want to get some thoughts from the group. I would love to ask a series of questions to get us involved. So raise your hand if you've ever been to a PCA workshop before. Okay, Kelly, you have. Ruben, you have not. Okay, helpful for me to hear. And I want to get a sense of the longevity of coaches that we have in the room. I know we have several coaches in here. Can you raise your hand if you are a first-time coach? You've been coaching for 1 year or less. Okay, nobody. How about 3 years or less? Okay, Ruben, you're about 3-year mark. And then I want to go 10 years or more of coaching. Okay, Kelly, wow. Okay, you have a lot of experience. I'm going to expect a lot from you during our conversation today.
No pressure.
As someone with a lot of experience. And I want to get a sense of what sports do we have represented. I know there are, raise your hand if you are a baseball coach. I know baseball coaches in the room. Basketball coach. Okay, we have one basketball coach, awesome. And soccer coaches as well. I know there are some of you all in the room. Perfect. And Ruben, remind me what coach you are?
He's volleyball. Mute. He's on mute, but he's the volleyball coach.
Yeah, sorry, I'm volleyball.
Awesome. So cool part about PCA is that we are not sports specific. So everything that you'll learn during today will be relatable for all different coaches and important for all of you to be able to utilize in your different coaching sessions. So if you're with me on slide 3, who is PCA? So PCA was founded in 1998. It's a nonprofit organization founded out of Stanford University. And we have had over 80,000 coaches trained through our training program. And through that have reached over 3.3 million youth. We've done over 2,500 live workshops. And I'll talk a little bit later about this, but had over 1 million visits to our website where we house all of the different resources. So just to give you a little bit of background, I don't want to spend too much time here, but felt that is helpful for you all. So let's dive into today's workshop. Slide 4 here. What does positive coaching mean to you? Kelly, can you let me know what positive coaching means to you?
I think positive coaching is a coach that's just having fun, really supporting the players, using lots of encouragement, and just enjoying what they're doing and getting to know the players as people.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think it is all about actually getting to know your players and making sure that you're developing a positive atmosphere for them. Ruben, what about you? Any thoughts?
Yeah, being a good role model for the kids, being on the lookout for the things they're doing right, as opposed to always, looking for mistakes and errors, and building kids up instead of tearing them down. Those are the things that come to mind for me.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And we'll go through some of those things today during the presentation that we talked about. Appreciate you both sharing some thoughts there. So slide 5, I know we talked a little bit about this. What does positive coaching mean to you? And you both had some fantastic answers and ways that you bring positive coaching and think about positive coaching. But really at PCA, we think about creating an atmosphere that supports best possible performance. So really today is about developing peak performance in your athletes and teaching life lessons through sports. So that's really what we do and what we focus here at PCA. So it's not just about developing those life lessons, but it's also about teaching our athletes the best way that they can win, and through a number of different ways. So our motto here at PCA is better athletes, better people. And we'll share with you some specific tools to how to implement positive coaching into your different organizations. So slide 6 here, the power of positive. So we're understanding more and more how coaches need to be positive. And you both noted on this as well when I asked you a little bit about this. And emphasizing positivity is really the best way to get the best out of our athletes. We're seeing more and more research to show this, both in a corporate environment as well as in athletics, that the positive environment is going to have our athletes be able to perform the best. And I like to use the quote on slide 7 from Dr. Barbara Fredrickson, who is a member of the PCA board, and says, there's a perception that the best way to get what you want out of employees or players is by negatives or threats. But negativity doesn't work as well as positivity. Those positive emotions are contagious for our athletes, and then leaders then share that positive emotion with others that they are leading. So slide 8 here, and I mentioned this a little bit before, but we are seeing more and more studies in the news about the benefits of a more positive approach. So there used to be the hard-nosed, tough coach, and that's going to drill into you and be negative and difficult. And we're seeing more and more that those are behind us. And the best way to motivate our athletes is through a positive environment. And that's something that we've seen. You'll see the headline there, the last days of the abusive coach, something that's pretty outdated and not really what we're seeing is the best for performance in our athletes. And slide 9, you'll see elite coaches know this. They know that positivity brings those results for our players. And we're pretty lucky here at PCA to have, if you go with me to slide 10, elite players and coaches agree with this. So these are some members of the PCA board that feel so strongly about our organization that they volunteered to be on our national advisory board. You'll see Bruce Bochy, numerous World Series winner. Steve Kerr won couple at least, championships with the Golden State Warriors. My favorite, Dusty Baker on here as a native Washingtonian. I love what Dusty brings to the organization. I feel like he just oozes positivity and a good environment. And then across the bottom, some other ones that you'll know of. Brad Stevens, one of the youngest head coaches, has brought a ton of success to the Boston Celtics. Doc Rivers, et cetera, et cetera. So these are coaches that believe in our message. They've hopped on. They said, hey, PCA is doing great things. We want to be involved in this. This is what we want. This is how we want our kids and our grandkids to be coached. So I thought that is pretty important to know that we have a backing of pretty strong individuals. Curious for you, Kelly, as you're looking at this list, is there one of these coaches that sticks out to you that you've studied or watched and seen?
I would say Janine Tucker, probably. I'm a lacrosse player, and
Right.
Lacrosse coaches don't usually get in the headlines, but I've seen Janine Tucker in action, and I've just found recently a lot of lacrosse coaches try to get that, like, I don't know, it just seems like they're coming across with this tough attitude, like screaming at the players, and the focus on recruiting has taken over the focus of actually development. So when I got to watch Janine Tucker run a clinic last year at the lacrosse convention, hers was significantly different than the other coach clinics that I watched. And she was enjoying herself, and she was laughing, and she was high-fiving, and she's coaching at Johns Hopkins, which is like a really high-level institution. And you could just, I mean, she looked like she was just having a blast out there, and the players were having a blast. And something as simple as just having music on. She had like great music while she was running her clinic, and everybody else had like a headset, and they were super serious. And she was like having the players, like they had to dance. Like they had to do like the floss and the shoot after they missed the goal. She had them like do a dance, and I'm thinking they're having a blast and they're giving her 100%.
That's
and
amazing.
it just was, and that was even before I realized she was on our national advisory board.
That's amazing.
So it was really cool.
That's really cool. When you think about the best coaches in the country doing things like that and making it fun and not making it like, hey, I'm going to drill this into you, is a pretty cool thing. Yeah. What about you, Ruben? Any of them that stick out to you? We got Ruben on.
I like all of them. I'm impressed with all of them. It's cool to hear about Coach Tucker. Brad Stevens really impresses me. I've never, quite honestly, I can't think of too many, and certainly not in the National Basketball Association, head coaches who walk the walk, walk the talk, walk the walk in terms of treating officials with respect.
Yeah.
And so he stands out to me.
Yeah, he's amazing. And we'll talk through that a little bit as we go on today. Honoring the game is one of our key principles. And I feel like Brad Stevens really hits that home and pretty unbelievable in what he's accomplished in such a short career and really how he's grown from being the Butler head coach. I know before that was also at some smaller institutions, and now to being the head coach of the Celtics, pretty impressive. So kind of on the opposite end, what slide are we on here? Slide 11. So what negativity does. And as someone that's pretty passionate about sports psychology and does a lot of reading on sports psychology, negativity really hinders our ability to be effective, to be able to succeed in our sports. And as coaches, it's our job to make sure that we are providing a positive atmosphere for our athletes. So you'll see that negativity makes it really tough to have your mind in the moment. If you are playing baseball and you struck out the last inning and you're still focused on that, it's going to be pretty hard to be able to be focused on that next pitch, on that next play when you're getting in the field. And then similarly, it'll distract you from the task at hand. So a lot of what we focus on in sports and in life is how can we be focused on the task and be mindful and present with where we are. And you'll see that we've kind of talked with and quoted a couple, two different pretty renowned sports psychologists, Charlie Maher and then Ken Ravizza, who I think of on the baseball side as one of, if not the best and the father of sports psychology. So I know a lot of what he focuses on is being present, being in the moment, getting rid of those mistakes, focusing on what's going on right now. So kind of the bad parts of negativity and how we always need to
Excuse me.
Bless you, Ruben. Focused on the positives. So I've shared a little bit about my thoughts on some of this. So I want to see if you all agree as coaches. So I want you to raise your hand if you agree with me on this. Positivity works better than negativity. Awesome. So it sounds like you both agree, which is great. And would you also agree and raise your hand? I'll get the broader group's perspectives that negativity distracts you from being present. Raise your hand if you agree with that. Awesome. So you're both on the same track as well. So tell me a little bit about why you think there is so much negativity in sports. Kelly, I'd love your thoughts on this.
Wow. So I coach the youth level and the high school level. And this season I was able to see negativity at both levels, which was kind of crazy. So I think there's different reasons, but I think part of it at the youth level is just ignorance on behalf of the parents, just not knowing what's going on and feeling like they still have so much control over their kids and trying to control their kids and not letting go. I think that was a lot of it. I didn't really feel like it was kind of like a nasty negativity at the elementary level. On the other side, at the high school level, I saw negativity just because I think parents are just so set on their kids succeeding because they think it's like the ticket to college, the ticket to a great life, and they feel all this pressure. Also, because I think there's a lot of money that's being spent in sports at the high school level these days, and they want payoff. Like if my kids aren't performing well or my kids aren't playing, if they're not starting and playing every game, the parents start to get upset because well, I'm paying for my kids to be on all these travel teams, and so I don't know. I think a lot of it just has to do with parents not knowing the how destructive it can be and how it's actually hurting their kids, not helping them.
Yeah, exactly. How do you mitigate some of that pressure that you can feel from the parents as a coach? What are some of the things that you do?
Well, my role, I was an assistant coach, so my role was to deal with parents, and I was also a parent. So, a lot of it is education, just saying, talking about how, guys, the refs are already not on our side. They already think, we're kind of a tough group to referee. So let's help the refs. And I talked to them a lot about, if we hear you yelling at the refs, we're going to ask you to leave, just point blank. I also would send out little email reminders on my emails that said like tips for parents today. And it was like, if you feel like screaming a coaching tip to your daughter, please instead take a deep breath. Like I actually told them, like,
that's amazing.
You're going to confuse the heck out of your kids if you're yelling at them to shoot and we want them to pass the ball. Please don't yell conflicting things. It's very confusing. So a lot of parents said they kind of appreciated it. And I also had the list, the lineup. I don't have one here, but I had the lineup for my kids, a laminated sheet for every parent that had the lineup of all the kids and all their numbers. And on the back of it, I had the QR code for the PCA Development Zone website. So as the parents were sitting in the stands bored, they could just click on the QR. And I didn't say what it was. I just said, check this out. So a lot of parents would just click the QR code and they would take them right to the Dev Zone website on parents. So a lot of parents were like, that was really cool because I had time to sit before the game and I got to look through those resources. So it was kind of just message bombardment, just sending them these messages.
I love that idea and get them engaged. And that way, when they're in the heat of the moment, they've already kind of read some good things about ways to act. So they're prepared. I love that as a tactic. Ruben, what are your thoughts? Why do you think there's so much negativity in sports?
Well, I think Coach Kratz, I agree with everything she said. And, she talked about money being involved and how it impacts the way parents behave. It also influences how coaches and administrators and even sometimes the athletes behave. There's just a lot of money on the line. At a lot of levels of sports, even in youth sports sometimes. And even when there isn't a lot of money involved, there's a perception that there might be, that, there might be a big time scholarship out there for, on the line. And I think whenever a lot of money is involved, I think people fight over it. I think they can show their ugly side. And this is inside of sports and outside of sports. So I think that's part of why there's so much negativity.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And you all hit on all the major things. The only other one that I'd add is we don't really see that there's a ton of coach training going on out there. So how do you best train your coaches so they know what type of environment to provide for their players, for the officials, for the other parents? So that's kind of the missing piece in the market that we see in order to be able to help our coaches understand what it's like to provide the right environment for our athletes. So if you move along with me to slide 13. So here you'll see we use sports psychology research and best practices of coaches to develop better athletes and therefore better people. So at PCA, we believe that the goal of youth and high school and collegiate sports is to do exactly that. It's to develop better athletes and better people. And we know that sports is a great place to do that because of all the different teachable moments they provide. So the athlete or the baseball player that struck out 3 times in a row and has to get up for the 4th time when the game's tied with 2 outs in the last inning, how can they be resilient? Or the pitcher their shortstop's made 3 errors in a row, how can they be a good teammate in a tough moment? So really our strategy is to equip coaches and athletes and parents and different leaders of sports organizations with the tools and based off sports psychology research in order to be able to provide the best atmosphere for their players. And let me be clear, I know I've talked a lot about the positivity of creating the right atmosphere, but we're also about creating better athletes. That's something that's important to us, and I'll go a little bit more in depth about that. But I just wanted to make that clear that we are focused on better environments, better athletes, as well as teaching life lessons through sports. And you have continued support. If you're with me on slide 14, you have support from PCA to do all of this. So we have a research-based coaching model to guide you. You all have a copy of The Power of Double Goal Coaching. There's practical tools. And we also want to make sure that there is ongoing support for you all. So Kelly, I know you mentioned that you've utilized the PCADevZone.org website. So that's something that's available to everyone that's here today in the workshop. So that'll be a continuous way for you all to be utilized and activating some of the different resources that we will talk about today. So I want to get the group talking again on slide 15. And Ruben, I'll start with you this time because I've gone with Kelly first the other times. But what makes a great youth experience for kids in your opinion?
A great youth experience or youth sports
youth
experience?
Sports experience, excuse me.
Sports, okay. Well, I think they've got to, when they're having fun, okay, whatever fun means to them. And for some kids, fun is joking around with a coach and a teammate. For some kids, it's experiencing the pressure of a tie game in the bottom of the 9th inning, and you know. So I think learning and getting better and seeing that you're developing as an athlete, you know, in the sport. I think those are a couple things that make for a great experience. Definitely.
And Kelly, anything to add that Ruben didn't mention?
I just think fun. I mean, when I think back to my best youth sports experiences, when we're having fun, that's what we remember. I don't remember the games as much as I do the like laughing until you can't even speak with my team on buses, or, you know, just silly, goofy things the coach did that just made me laugh. That's why I played.
Love it. And a lot of those are kind of intertwined with what we believe at PCA. So if you go with me to slide 16, what is a meaningful athlete experience? We say three big things: feeling connected to teammates and coaches. You mentioned laughing and joking and having a good time, believing that they can improve, teaching life skills, as we mentioned before. And it's about feeling proud about acting with integrity. So those are the 3 big things that we believe makes, bless you, a positive athlete. Bless you again. Makes a positive athlete experience. So if your players were to get all 3 things, Ruben, what do you think might happen with their experience?
I think they'll enjoy it and want to keep playing, and they'll probably play better too.
Exactly. And that's exactly right. And that's what we believe. And that's really what today's all about, is equipping you with the right tools and best practices so that your players enjoy their sports and also improve. So slide 17 kind of brings what I mentioned before to a little bit more color and provides a little bit more perspective on what we'll be talking about today. So that connected aspect, the emotional tank, with regard to improving our elm tree of mastery. And then third, integrity, which is about honoring the game. So I wanted to kind of set the tone for today with our conversation here in the beginning, but then throughout our conversation today, we'll be going through all 3 of these different aspects. So the emotional tank, the elm tree of mastery, and the honoring the game. Slide 18, I want to give you all something from one of the members of our advisory board, Coach Herm Edwards, an advocate of positive coaching, and let him talk a little bit about understanding your legacy. So I'll let him do that. Perfect. So I want to do a little quick exercise with you all, and I'll let Kelly, you and Ruben work together here. And slide 19 here, when the book of your life is written, what will it say that you made a difference? I think this is something that we really took away from that video, and we want to know, what are our coaches' thoughts on this? So when I say go, I want each of you to take 30 seconds to turn to each other and say, what would you like to have people say about you as a coach? So Ruben, you're going to go first for 30 seconds. You're going to tell Kelly. And then Kelly, you're going to go for 30 seconds and say the same thing. So what would you like to have people say about you as a coach? So once I say go, Ruben, you'll start. And then I'll kind of tell you to stop in 30 seconds, and then we'll switch. All right. So ready, go.
Yeah, Kelly. So I would like people to say that I was a hard worker, that I was a good competitor, that I was a good teacher, that I helped players get better, and finally that I was a good role model for the boys and girls.
Love it, love it. Kelly, your turn. Go. We'll switch.
I'd like the players to say that I really cared about them as people, and that I helped them love a really hard sport. I helped them love to learn a really hard sport, and just help keep their heads in the right place. That I focus them on enjoying what they're doing, having fun, not being too serious at times, and just learning to be great teammates and learning to get along and work well with people that aren't like them.
Awesome. Awesome. Love both those. Appreciate you all taking some time to share with each other. So slide 20, PCA's model of coaching, the double goal coach. Let's explore how we can truly be a positive coach. So PCA, we say a positive coach is a double goal coach. The first goal on the left is striving to win. And the second and even more important one is teaching life lessons through sports. And it's really the second part, the teaching life lessons, that makes someone a double goal coach. We have a lot of those coaches that you'll see that get into the news that want to win at all costs, that are crazy negative, and you see it. And if you're like me, you want to pull your hair out because it just drives you nuts to see people acting like that. But really, it's important to focus on striving to win and teaching life lessons. So double goal coaches, they definitely care about winning. They recognize that this is important, but they understand that they can accomplish both goals as a double goal coach. It's important when the two kind of come to the surface that you are focusing on teaching life lessons. So when the two kind of hit each other, and I wouldn't say that happens very often, I would say for the most part, if you are striving to win and you're teaching life lessons, they're going to work together. But if there are times where they start to butt into each other, you want to make sure that you are teaching life lessons. So you'll see if you have an athlete that's maybe your best player and he gets rung up on a strike three call on the outside and he throws his helmet, that's really where we want to teach life lessons about how can you be resilient, how can you treat others with respect. So that's where we want to but really want to go over to the teaching life lessons aspect and bench that player and say, hey, we're going to make a statement here and we're not going to disrespect some of our umpires, not disrespect any of our umpires, and really focus on what are those life lessons that we can teach through sports. So I tell that story just to bring it to life a little bit more and say about those times when possibly it could butt heads. But really, for the most part, we believe at PCA that if you are teaching life lessons and that you're also focusing on striving to win, that's really what's going to provide the best atmosphere for our athletes. So slide 22 will be the last slide that I talk about here. And this kind of provides a way for me to go through the rest of our talk today. I guess it won't be the last slide in real life, but this provides an outline of what we'll be going through today. First, I'll be talking about filling the emotional tank. Second, I'll be talking about the elm tree of mastery. And then third, I will be talking about honoring the game. So let's take a closer look at filling the emotional tank.
All right. Thanks, Harris.
Thank you. I guess I could have paused at the end for any questions, but I feel like I was going with questions throughout.
That's okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's a need to pause for questions in between those.
Right there,
those
yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I think you gave us a smooth transition and you're ready to take us to the next principle.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, we're ready at that point to get into the principles and tools. So.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. The only thing I would suggest, and this is just to change your tone sometimes, the introduction is like, blah, 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 like telling the background, the reason. It's a lot of information. And we actually think it's too much information. So we're trying to edit that a little bit. But, to kind of switch the tone, like, all right, let's get to the first principle. Sometimes I'll just say, everybody up, everybody on your feet. Like just to kind of switch the tone from like I just gave you a lot of information that's setting the stage.
Yeah.
Now we're going to get to work. So a lot of times I'll do that just to kind of everybody's mindset, just sort of shift it to now we're getting to work. Let's go.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ruben, would you like to start?
I'd love to. Harris, I really like what you did in your first demo. I really like what you did. We went. You started. I had you starting at 8:04 Pacific time. In the demo, and wrapping up at 8:33 Pacific time, which is 29. Is my math right? 29 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And in a live group, it's going to go a little slower. It just does, and so I think you want to cut that down to find a way to pare it down to about 20.
Okay.
And we might talk about some strategies for doing that. So, but I really like what you did because I thought you were very true to the workshop, to the sample script, a very complete coverage, very complete, and I think that's a great place in your first demo. And I think what Kelly is going to encourage you to do is keep that professionalism, keep your smoothness, keep your poise. And transition now to making this a little more your own.
Yeah.
Think about the concept. Less is more. Don't worry about every little point that's in that PowerPoint trainer notes.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was a very, very strong first demo. You got us talking consistently. You ask follow-up questions like, when on Kelly, on the negativity, I think she said negativity, start talking about parents, and then how do we mitigate that? And I think that was fine and good follow-up and in the moment. In terms of being true to the script and complete, I notice when you say, when I say go.
Yeah.
I think that's a good little phrase when so you started at 8:04, and at 8:07 you had us raise our hands on a couple things, and you actually asked us what sports we coach. So you did get us involved a little bit there.
Yeah.
But minimal. At 8:09, exactly the 5-minute mark, you got us talking about what does PCA mean to you. So that's like the outer limit of when you want to get to that discussion.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's I think in the notes somewhere it says within 5 minutes, let's get and so you were right at 5.
Okay.
Okay, and then lastly, a couple little things. I'll turn it over to Kelly. There's some language we want to encourage you to use, and there's some language that we all, including Kelly and me, are trying to work out of our PCA vocabulary, workshop vocabulary. So when you talked about the 3 needs that kids have, and need to be connected, emotional tank, that's where you use the word principle. because ELM, E-Tank, honoring the game, those are PCA principles.
Okay.
So principles.
What did he call them? I didn't even catch that.
Things.
Things.
It was there was no term for these 3
Things.
whatever you want things which PCA, and I've heard trainers say pillars, concepts, main ideas.
Yeah.
At PCA, we consistently call them principles. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then Kelly's gonna laugh. You used the word presentation, and you only did it once. But we are not training you to do a presentation. What are we training you to lead?
Workshop.
A workshop, an interactive workshop. So don't call it a presentation. Don't refer yourself as a presenter. Don't refer to the participants as audience members. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, Harris, we just met with 200 trainers, and I got to rant a little bit to them about we're sending the wrong signal to your participants. You're telling them you want them to participate. You're calling them, the audience. So anyway, so I think you get the message.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, that's so I'm used to giving presentations and referring to it as a presentation. So that's going to take me a little bit to take that hat off and do it.
It's taking me a while.
And I think one of the
Yeah.
I think it's easy, especially when you see a PowerPoint and you're supposed to give information. I mean, that's what you do.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we're trending more towards getting away from the PowerPoint. You're sort of stuck right in the middle because we're revising this. We're going to be, putting out a new workshop this fall with the same principles, but we're going to get further away from that's not how people learn. And when people see a PowerPoint, they just want to give information. So, but I really like the way that, as Ruben said, that the information there and you know it well. I once heard somebody say, it's important to know the trade before you learn the tricks of the trade.
Right.
And I think that's where you're at. If you understand everything, you understand the concepts and how they work together, then if we're saying, hey, you know what, if you do an activity where there's people up and talking and moving around, you know how to get right back. And if your activity took the place of a slide, that's fine. Skip over it and keep going. But it is important to know what's on it and what's in order well. And I think you did that really well.
Cool.
Harris, I just like your presence. I like your voice tone. I think you're very easy to listen to. And you have this tone of like an authority, but not like an arrogance at all. Yeah. And, you played at a high level. So I think that's awesome. I would love to connect a little bit more to you, because if you're going to be facilitating a workshop for me for the next 90 minutes, I want to know, like, who are you? Yeah. You did say, like, I played at Lehigh University and I'm 27 years old and this is what I did. But I really think that, even at the end, for example, when you said about, you said like, that's a story about a player, I'd rather hear a story about a player that you coached, or I'd rather hear a personal story. Like, hey, the reason that I'm passionate about this is because when I was a freshman in high school, I had this coach and blah, blah, blah. This is what he did. Or maybe it was a positive experience. Maybe it was a negative experience.
Okay. That's what I would add. Like, I had a horrible college coach from a positive perspective. Like, he was unbelievably negative and he drove me away from baseball. And like, do I want to go in there or do I not want to go in there?
I mean, if you go in there, what's that going to help? Like, if you tell me that story about a horrible coach that you had in college that led you away from the sport, how can me as a coach sitting in your workshop learn from that?
I mean, I guess you understand how transformative coaching can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, obviously you're a guy that had a lot of talent and you were a high level player, and that coach that you had actually drove you away from the sport that you loved. Think about that for me being like, let's say I'm a youth little league coach who's only been coaching for 3 years. And I do have a tendency to scream at guys and yell at them and criticize them every chance I get. Yeah. It kind of makes people think like, wow, am I that coach? I've heard other trainers say you don't want to be that kid's last coach.
Right.
And I mean, think about it. That coach that you had in college was your last coach.
Right.
Harris, you asked a good question, do I go there? So I think there's a way to incorporate that experience without identifying the coach.
Right.
And maybe you don't even say what level it was. I mean, if you want to keep it vague. Now, is it possible that someone in the workshop is going to Google Lehigh baseball and go, oh, wow, that was Coach Jones? It's unlikely, but if they do, fine. But I think you can talk about that experience, because that's going to take a very professional opening of the workshop, and it's going to make it powerful in a way that only you can make it powerful for you.
Right.
Right. And so I really like that Kelly has brought that possibility up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, did that coach that you had influence how you coach now?
Like 10 million%.
Yeah. So that's what I want to hear. That's the catch. That's the part that's going to make me go, wow, like this had a big impact on him. And that's when you said like the power of positive, that's where the power comes from, because I think a lot of us don't realize, like, yeah, I'm coaching, I'm not even getting paid, I'm just a volunteer, it's just little league, or it's just what, we don't realize the influence that some of us have as a coach. And I often say, there's sometimes we say one thing that can stick with a player for the next 20 years. And as a coach, we might forget about it in 5 minutes. Right. But it's that one thing that we said. And that's where this comes from. That's where these workshops, these live workshops, are so much more impactful than just the online workshops, because you get to evoke stories. And I don't like to take coaches to a point where, like, turn to a partner and share about the most negative coach you ever had. Because that can just lead up a whole nother wormhole. But I do like to have them think about a coach that impacted them and why.
Yeah.
And when some of them realize like, wow, that coach coached me 20 years ago and I vividly remember what they said. And then you lead into the, emotional tank about the coach that, it doesn't matter what you say. It's how you made them feel. Like there's powerful places to put that in. I just like to put in the intro. That was my only thing that I put, like, what's your story? That's what I wanted to know.
I can see that.
And then Kelly and Harris, of course, once you do that, that could add in 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 minutes, which is good. Those are it's well worth that experience in the workshop coming forward. But it means then, okay, what part of this opening is going to go, and you'll look and you'll go, well, this isn't critical. The slide with the PCA statistics, 10 seconds on that. You don't have to. I mean, hey, here's a little bit of information on PCA over the past year, and move on. Right.
Go on.
So I just have a couple more because I know you have a hard stop in 1 minute. Things I really loved I like when you just added in little things like about Dusty Baker, because those are just like pictures on a slide. So when you can bring that to life, like you said, he oozes positivity. Like I like that talk about a little bit about Brad Stevens. It's not on the slide. Ken Ravizza, the things you put in there. Like I love those little anecdotes that you can put in to show that these are real people. They're just not like a commercial for positivity. So I thought that was really great. And I liked, the 30 seconds to share with a partner. That's a really well-run discussion, and you're going to get a lot of people talking about that. That's a really powerful part of the workshop where they realize, like, wow, I have an influence. What do I want my players to know about me? So I thought that was really great as well. So when you get into the next part, I think July 9th, you're scheduled to do the next one. You can pick whatever principle you want to. You don't necessarily have to just do E-Tank, but that's where you really get the coaches to practice the principles in the workshop. They get to know a little bit of theory, a little bit of why we do it, a scenario to have them connect it to their own team. And then the tools are the most important part. So I know it's only one slide at the end, but if you can have the coaches thinking about how they would do it, practice the words. One of you pretend to be a player. One of you pretend to be a coach. How would you do a 5-to-1 ratio? How would you do a criticism sandwich? How would you do buddy system? Think about how you would get us to actually do it in a workshop. It'll be much more likely that they'll do it when they get out to practice.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
And about 20 minutes, if you keep about 20 minutes for each of them, you should have time, no problem at all getting through the whole workshop.
Okay. Perfect.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate both of your time.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I'll send you the recording to this too, so you can watch it back if you really enjoy watching yourself back.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, Harris. Thanks, Ruben, for joining us.
Bye-bye.
He's on mute again, but I think he said goodbye. Bye-bye.